You ever wake up and realize you're running a race you don't even want to win? That's where I was. That's where a lot of us are, burning out, bending over backwards, breaking our own backs just to earn a seat at a table we don't even like the food at. So let me say this and say it loud enough to rattle the bones of your burnout. You are allowed to stop giving a damn about things that don't grow you, fuel you, or feel like peace. You've been polite long enough. You've been shrinking to fit into rooms that can't handle your full self. You've been saying yes to things that your soul whispered no to. That ends here. The moment I stopped giving a shit about being liked, being perfect, or being everything to everyone was the moment I started living on my own terms. I didn't lose peace, I gained it. I didn't lose people, I lost noise. And the crazy part, the more real I got, the more I realized this. Freedom doesn't come from fixing yourself. It comes from releasing what was never yours to carry. So if you're tired, not just physically, but soul tired, hear me when I say this. You don't have to earn your worth by pleasing people who can't even see you. Stop performing, start becoming. You spend so much of your life trying to be everything for everyone. And at some point, you don't even realize it's costing you something you can't get back your peace. People pleasing isn't kindness, survival mode dressed up like love. And when you keep doing it over and over, you start to confuse being liked with being safe. You think approval means you're doing something right, but that's the trap. That's where the poverty begins, not in your bank account, but in your emotional bank. You keep paying with your energy, your time, your silence, your joy, just to make sure someone else stays comfortable. And in the process, you start going broke inside. You say yes all when you want to say a no. You agree when something inside you is screaming. You smile when you're tired. You show up when your soul is begging you to rest. All because you think if you don't, someone will think less of you, walk away from you, talk about you, label you. So you keep buying their approval with pieces of yourself, tiny cuts, daily sacrifices. And it becomes a pattern so normal you stop questioning it. But the thing is, no matter how much you give, it's never enough for the people who expect you to break yourself to keep them whole. You'll lose sleep trying to hold it all together, but still feel like you're behind. And even when you finally do everything right, it doesn't land. It doesn't satisfy. It doesn't feel like love. It feels like performance. Exhausting, constant, unpaid performance. People-pleasing teaches you to betray yourself gently, quietly. It teaches you to erase your needs so you can make space for others. And every time you do it, you're teaching your nervous system that your needs are dangerous, that your truth is a threat, that being real could cost you everything. That's where the emotional poverty deepens. You go numb, you go quiet, you stop asking for what you want. You lower your standards to avoid conflict. You tolerate what drains you just to avoid the discomfort of honesty. And maybe one day you just wake up tired. Not sleepy tired, but soul tired. Tired of editing yourself. Tired of managing everyone's emotions. Tired of dimming your light so nobody feels insecure around your shine. And that's the beginning of the shift. When you finally see that what you thought was kindness was actually fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being too much. Fear of being alone. When you finally stop caring so much about what everyone thinks, it doesn't mean you stop caring about life. It doesn't mean you give up. It means something inside of you wakes up, something that was buried under years of trying to get it right. You're not turning cold, you're just getting clear. And clarity feels like silence at first. It feels like pulling away, like detaching from noise you didn't realize was always there. You start to see how much of your energy was being spent on things that never even mattered to you. There's a big difference between being numb and being neutral. Numb is what happens when you're overwhelmed and your body just shuts down. But neutral, that's power. That's when you're no longer controlled by the highs and lows. You're not chasing validation. You're not falling apart from rejection. You're not obsessed with making everyone happy. You're not emotionally hooked into every opinion, every room, every outcome. You're just steady. And that's what happens when you stop giving a shit. Not because you're bitter, but because you're finally aligned. You begin to live from a different place. Not survival, not guilt, not the fear of being judged. You start asking different questions, like does this feel good to me? Instead of a will they approve, you start protecting your energy the same way you protect your time or your money. You start seeing how sacred your attention is, how easily it gets hijacked by things that look urgent but aren't actually important. And it's wild how freeing it is. You stop performing. You stop decorating yourself to fit the mood of the room. You stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. You realize not every reaction needs a response. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every conflict requires your involvement. The peace you start to feel, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't announce itself, but it starts showing up in the way you say a no without explaining, in the way you walk away without guilt, in the way you don't chase closure because your silence is the closure. People might not understand it at first. They might call it selfish, cold, distant, but that's okay. They're used to the version of you that overgave, overexplained, overstayed. They'll adjust or they won't. Either way, you're not living to be understood anymore. You're living to be whole. And being whole sometimes means disappointing people who only loved you when you were half. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your true self, you're abandoning a piece of your future. It's like handing over a bit of your energy, your passion, and your focus to something that doesn't nourish you. And it adds up slowly at first, then all at once. Saying yes to what doesn't fit means saying a no to what actually could. You make the choice to avoid discomfort in the moment, but in the process, you're setting the stage for more dissatisfaction later. The truth is, every time you shrink yourself to please others, you're telling your soul it's not enough. You're telling yourself that your needs don't matter, that your voice isn't strong enough to be heard over the noise of other people's expectations. Saying a no doesn't just protect your time, it protects your peace, it protects your growth. When you honor your no, you're practicing self-respect. It's a reminder that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to give yourself permission to rest in the places that fill you up, to put your energy into the things that reflect the best of who you are. The more you choose what nourishes you, the more you find your life starts to reflect it. You stop feeling like you're running on empty. You stop feeling like you're always playing catch up. Because when you stop abandoning your own needs for the sake of others, your energy, your creativity, and your joy start to return in ways you didn't even realize were missing. It's not about being cold. It's about being wise enough to know that giving yourself away to things that drain you is a form of self-sabotage. You can't build a future on sacrifices that aren't yours to make. Every time you say a no to what doesn't serve you, you make space for what will. Every choice you make to honor yourself, to walk away from what doesn't feel right, is a choice to build a life that reflects your true desires, your true values. It's a declaration that your time, your energy, your focus are valuable, and they're not available for just anything. And let's be real, saying a no isn't easy. It feels awkward. It feels uncomfortable. You might feel guilty, like you're letting someone down. But that's the tricky thing about guilt. It's a feeling that tries to convince you that your own well-being isn't as important as someone else's. It's a lie that tells you that pleasing others is somehow more virtuous than honoring your own needs. But the more you practice saying a no, the more you realize that guilt isn't a sign of wrongness. It's a sign of growth. It's a sign that you're finally prioritizing yourself. You can't control how people perceive you, and frankly, you shouldn't try to. The truth is, trying to manage the way others see you is a never-ending game that only leaves you exhausted. You could be the kindest, most thoughtful person, but someone somewhere is going to misunderstand your intentions. Someone is going to form an opinion about you based on their own assumptions, insecurities, or biases. And that's okay. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mislabel you. Because in the end, their perception of you doesn't define who you are. It defines them. The real question is, why do we care so much? Why do we chase after people's approval? Why do we bend ourselves out of shape just to fit their idea of who we should be? It's like trying to get a seat in a room where you don't even want to be. We think we need to be liked, accepted, or validated to feel worthy. But when you let go of the need for others to get you, you free yourself. You stop bending over backward to fit into spaces that aren't designed for your authenticity. You stop trying to prove that you're worthy of their love, their time, or their attention. You start understanding that your worth is not for negotiation. It's not up for debate. People can misunderstand you all they want, but their misunderstanding doesn't take anything away from you. In fact, it's their loss, not yours. When you live true to yourself, you create a space for the right people to understand you, to see you for who you truly are, not who they think you should be. And those people, the ones who see you in your wholeness, will stay. They'll stay because they know your truth doesn't need to be explained or justified. They'll accept you without you having to shrink or hide parts of yourself. It's freeing, really, to stop trying to fit into everyone's expectations. You realize that the people who truly matter won't need you to change. They won't need you to explain yourself, to clarify your actions, or to walk on eggshells around them. They'll respect your boundaries, value your authenticity, and appreciate you exactly as you are. And if they don't, that's not your problem anymore. You're no longer tied to the approval of people who don't see your value. So stop performing. Stop explaining. Stop shrinking yourself just to make others comfortable. You don't owe anyone an explanation for living your life on your own terms. You don't owe anyone a justification for who you are. Let them misunderstand you. Let them try to fit you into their limited view of who you should be. Because the moment you stop giving a damn about being understood by everyone is the moment you start living for the people who truly see you. Perfection is a cage. It's a straitjacket you put on yourself, convinced that if you just get everything right, everything will fall into place. But here's the thing, perfection isn't freedom. It's the illusion of control. It's the belief that if you show up flawless, the world will finally validate you, accept you, and love you. But that's the trap. You can never be perfect. And the harder you try, the more you lose sight of who you really are. Perfection is exhausting because it demands a version of you that's always polished, always poised, always at its best. It requires you to silence parts of yourself, to hide your flaws, to pretend that everything is always okay when deep down, you know it's not. Authenticity, on the other hand, is the key. It's the doorway to real freedom. When you choose authenticity over perfection, you give yourself permission to be messy, to be real, to be human. It's about embracing the imperfections, the flaws, the mistakes, and seeing them not as weaknesses, but as pieces of your story that make you whole. Perfection is a facade that keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-judgment and self-doubt. But when you let go of that need to appear flawless, you start to see yourself for who you truly are. And that's where the power lies. Being authentic doesn't mean you stop striving for growth or self-improvement. It doesn't mean you let go of your ambitions or settle for mediocrity. It means you show up as you are with all your scars, all your quirks, and all your mess, and you still stand tall. You realize that your value isn't determined by how perfect you are. It's determined by how true you are to yourself. You stop hiding behind a mask of perfection and start embracing the raw, unfiltered version of who you are. And that's when the magic happens. When you stop pretending to be someone you're not, you attract the people, the opportunities, and the experiences that are meant for you, not the version of you that you think people want to see. The beauty of authenticity is that it's magnetic. People are drawn to it because it's rare. Everyone is so busy trying to be something they're not, that when they see someone who is comfortable with their imperfections, it's like a breath of fresh air. Authenticity doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to be liked. It just is. And when you live in your truth, you give others the permission to do the same. You set a standard for how you want to be treated, and you stop accepting anything less than that. The more you embrace your true self, the more you create space for others to embrace theirs. Why fight for a seat at a table that was never meant for you? We've all been there, chasing after recognition, approval, and opportunities that are set up to make us conform, to make us shrink, to make us fit into a mold that was never ours to begin with. We think we need to prove ourselves, to fight for a place in someone else's world, when in reality, we've been given the power to create our own. The problem with trying to squeeze into someone else's table is that you're always playing by their rules. You're always trying to meet their standards, their expectations, their needs. And the moment you stop doing that, you're out. You're left standing in the cold wondering what went wrong, when in fact, the real mistake was believing that their table was the one that mattered. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You need to stop fighting for a seat at a table that isn't even designed for your growth. Instead, build your own table. Create a space where you don't have to dim your light, where you don't have to shrink to make others feel comfortable. Your table can be anything you want it to be. Your own business, your own circle of friends, your own vision for your life. You get to decide what kind of energy you bring to the table, who you invite to sit with you, and what kind of conversations you're willing to have. The moment you stop trying to fit into spaces that weren't built for you is the moment you start creating the life you were meant to live. You stop depending on others to make room for you. You make your own room. When you stop fighting for someone else's table, you realize you've been wasting so much time and energy on something that wasn't even aligned with who you are. Your table will attract the people who resonate with your true self, not the version of you that's trying to fit into someone else's expectations. It will attract the opportunities that match your passion and purpose, not the ones that keep you stuck in a cycle of trying to prove your worth. Building your own table isn't about being selfish or shutting others out. It's about creating space for your truth to thrive. It's about saying, I'm not here to play by anyone else's rules. I'm here to create my own. And once you do that, you'll realize that there's more than enough room at your table for the right people, the right opportunities, and the right experiences to show up. Let me know if you want this styled for video script, Instagram reel captions, or with visuals in mind. Got you.